So David and I decided that we would try our own little thing on a monthly basis in the village hall and see how it went. So far it's going okay, so at the moment we're carrying on. There are fire exits that you should be aware of. There, and there. That one, please avoid all the tact as you run towards it. There are toilets at the back, and then obviously refreshments here. David and I make musical instruments for a living. Some people may not exactly term it a living, but that's what we do full time anyway. And we also make musical instruments, sound art pieces, and if wet is an opportunity for us to demonstrate some of the work that we're working on, and for other artists that we admire to come and talk about their work. Generally speaking, there are exceptions to this rule, but generally speaking, it's not performances that you'll see at If Wet, it's people talking about their work and why they do it, and it's also an opportunity very much for everybody here, whatever their interests, to talk about the work and to talk to the artists and discuss and experience why people are doing what they're doing. So, we are going to start with a very short presentation. Unusually today we've got two artists presenting. Historically we had two artists, but we didn't feel it always gave them enough time, and also it cost more money. And that's a real consideration for something as tin pot as If Wet. So we're going to talk about these pieces. Yesterday evening, these two pieces and two further units that look like that were on show at the Longbridge Light Festival. We were commissioned to make some sound art pieces that use light to affect the sound. So this one here, this is the subtle one of the two. So what this has in there is two, I'll give away all of the secrets, it has two MP3 players in it. And they both go through a single amplifier to these two speakers. And what the light does is brings up the volume of the second MP3 player. It's as simple as that. So we have a recording, a field recording that David did at a scrapyard in Coventry, and that field recording is playing all the time. And then as you bring in light, field recording that an artist called Hannah Hull did is layered over the top. And that recording has various phases in it, so you don't always get an immediate indication, but you'll hear the voices come and go as the light is introduced. And these are people who used to work at... These are people who used to work at Longbridge in the car factory. They're being interviewed about their time at the car factory and tell these wonderful yarns about that time. And it's something that we wanted to bring into the public arena, because Hannah had done these recordings, put them on SoundCloud as part of the project, but we wanted them to actually be experienced out and about when people were walking around the festival. As you can see, what would happen is people would come up to these quite close quarters, like so, and then use this light that we attached in order to affect the second layer of sound. We're always learning. We learned one thing yesterday, which you might argue should have learned before, which is that in quite a loud setting, something that's relatively subtle like this, as much as we like subtle, and I'm the sort of person who will stand playing with this, listening to this for quite some time. Not everybody's like me. In fact, those t-shirts, some of you will know, reflect this. So that t-shirt says on it, "I'm no yardstick," and the reason that we produce those is because David always has to remind me when I get excited about something that we've made that maybe my view of the world is not everybody else's view of the world. So you need to always be checking your work and make sure that it works for a wide audience. This was quite subtle and wasn't always very immediate for people. On the other hand,
the high-tech revolving stage we brought on special.
This one's very unsubtle.
This was the most popular by far.
What you have inside that box is one MP3 player and one fairly commonly used noise box circuit, so for little noise box synthesizers, and they kind of feed into one another so that you get all of that. Basically, the noise box circuit pushes it over an audible limit in the amplifier circuit. So that means that when the noise box is only going duk, 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 that's the only blasts of the audio that you can hear. And then when the oscillator's going very fast with a higher note, you hear it throughout. This was very interesting too, because it was the most successful from the point of view of lots of people using it, but it did also elicit the most anger and aggression of all of the pieces that we made. So the first thing that we saw, having only just put it up, was a child getting a glow stick and smashing it, which was rather funny, but also worrying because it had to last for 4 hours. And I was saying to Ben before we started that it lasted throughout the whole 4 hours until, inexplicably, you might say, people who were in charge of doing the projections on the Longbridge site, they came and had a look at it in their high-vis as they were loading stuff into their van, and they took offence to it too, and they were rather burlier than the little kid with his glow stick. So when they beat the shit out of it, it broke. So anyway, so we fixed it for today. But it was really fascinating because you did have this sense that by being quite aggressive in the sound that you were putting into their environment, and it was quite a noisy space anyway with other stuff going on, but they could attack this one. It was in the public domain, so you did get a real sense that the sound massively affected their response to it, and in quite a negative way. It's a noisy box, and people. Yeah. Anyway, so it was really fascinating, and we continued. This is part of sort of an extension of some of the stuff that we've been doing for a long time, sort of sonic graffiti pieces. So historically, all of this facade and all of this infrastructure that we actually place into the environment for people to experience the sounds through didn't exist. The point of sonic graffiti pieces really is that they are secreted in the built environment. So there'd be a lot of stuff that we do before. You might come across a headphone socket in a wall, for example, as you're walking past, and if you happen to have headphones on you and plug them in, then you would hear either recorded sound or sounds of synthesizers or whatever. These start to... an interesting thing happens when you start to get commissioned to do sonic graffiti pieces, because, believe it or not, the people who are commissioning them want people to find them, want the audience to find them. We've never cared whether our audience have found the sonic graffiti pieces we've made before, but obviously commissioners want people to see and experience the work. So that's been an interesting development of late in our sonic graffiti pieces, because they have to see them. They have to hopefully find them quite immediate in the way they work. Although one thing that we saw an awful lot of was that. So people were doing this, and it was affecting the sound, because as they passed over the sensor with their hand, you see, so that was enough for them to go, yeah, this is working.
But in some ways you can use that as a design cue for the next one, because it's quite obvious from observing people using them, that it would be a
Yeah.
Would be a much more would probably be more intuitive.
Yeah.
For people who use them.
So, you know, it's doing what we do is often about assessing how people use them and get the most out of them. Or you just don't care about that, which is what the basis of the Sonic Graffiti stuff was originally. That was very much a project where we were just putting our work out there for our own sakes, really. And if people found it and enjoyed it, that was great. Is that us?
We're not going to talk about how they're not like the shapes.
Oh, let's briefly touch upon the fact that now, does this form remind anyone of anything? Well done. Yeah. One of the tricks of doing the sort of instrument building that we often do is to find things that already exist, that are well manufactured, that are close to what you want to make, in order that you can repurpose it and at the very least use it to an initial demo prototype point. At which point you might have to get something properly manufactured. But in this case, I missed the fact when designing these that they looked rather like light shades until it was too late. So these are in fact IKEA mixing bowls.
Carefully drilled with a hole drilled essential
with a very expensive drill bit that will drill stainless steel through the bottom, 8 of them in total, and then mounted with these are wine straining sieves, which is something I wasn't aware existed, but they do. So that's what gives us this cone-shaped design. But really, if I'd gone to IKEA myself, if I'd gone to IKEA myself and walked through the lighting area, I might have gone, those look like just what I need. At which point, these would still need to be mounted on the back console, but everything else is done. And it was a really head-in-the-hands moment when I was like, oh God, I could have just used lights. But anyway, so I spent hours and lots of expensive drill bits, drilling holes in.
But it won't happen again.
It will never happen again.
And if you do, you have the drill bit.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with having the right tool. For a job you'll never do again.
Never say never.
And you'll be able to spot the clothes dry.
So there we go. That's our presentation for today. Relatively short, maybe sweet. And now, should we take it? Do people want more drink or anything, or should we just go straight over to Pete Ashton? It is in your hands. Also, if you have any questions at any point, please just stick your hands up. Here's a question.
I think the only bowls that I don't know if it's or is it technical?
Good question. When we the last if wet, we had these units that had just the cone part on the outside and the speaker on the inside, and that same question was asked. And at that point, the question was, they have no real acoustic qualities. In this case, they do quite a lot. Firstly, they shield the outside sound a lot. So if you get your head into the units like that, then you block out a lot of the exterior sound. The other thing is that mounting the speaker on the end of those funnels means that you go from what's quite a tin pot speaker when you put it in a normal context, something that's at least got a bit of bass and a bit of mid-range. It's not, and it's very it's not hi-fi in any sense, but it does just speak for like a bit.
Initially, the founded idea was to have them with the arms coming out like that, so they were like sort of a bonkers wider version of the headphone.
And those loudspeakers very similar.
Face out, yeah. But yeah, so they do, they help to amplify it, and these units themselves help to block out some of the exterior sound.
But basically, you can't go too far wrong if it looks as bonkers as those.
It's really key that people kind of look at them and go, I want to use that, I want to get my head stuck in there. Yeah. Any more questions?
Is it just a one-day thing, the Longbridge Light Show?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Longbridge is the arts side of Longbridge is run by a group called Work, W-E-R-K, and a lady called Claire Farrell, and they have a long programme of arts stuff associated to that area, the redevelopment of it, launched with the Light Festival last night.
Successful, good? Was it good?
It was great.
Yeah.
There was some really interesting stuff there. I was particularly jealous of the lady that kept walking around with a backpack on with 4 kind of siren speakers out of the top. I have no idea what it was for at all, but it was really cool.
Except they didn't spin round. Ours would spin
It should have spun round.
when we steal it.
Okay, let's go for Pete Ashton if he's happy to.